Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, if I was going to ask you if you would like to learn more about a unique battery chemistry that comes with a nano-structured crystal compound called Lithium Titanate, would you reply like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix with, whoa? Or hearing nano-structured crystal compound Lithium Titanate, would you reply like Doc Brown in Back to the Future with, Great Scott? Well, a company called ZapBatt appeared on my radar recently for doing just that. No, not doing movie star impressions, but creating a new kind of battery system that can be used to power a wide range of electric products for both businesses and consumers. And in comparison to other batteries out there, this lithium titanate battery will charge faster, last longer, and is overall better for the environment and the bottom line. So it seems like a win-win for everyone. But what are they? What are they going to be used for? What is the value proposition? Well, these are just a few of the areas that we're going to explore today. And roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California, where Charlie Welch from ZapBatt is going to join us in conversation and help us demystify this technology. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Charlie Welch. I'm the co-founder and CEO at ZapBatt, which is a battery technology company working with a piece of technology called Lithium Titanate. And what we're working on is releasing a new battery system that charges faster, lasts a lot longer, and is much safer than the typical lithium-ion chemistries. And we're looking forward to this technology making a big impact in several industries.
Now, before I learn more about your success, I always like to learn a little bit more about my guests and how they got where they are today. So my question to you is, how did you get here? What's your origin story? And where did your passion for technology collide with the world of batteries? And what lit the spark? Can you remember what it was that put you on this path?
Mm-hmm. So it's actually kind of a fun story. So before ZapBatt, I used to work at Northrop Grumman Aerospace in applied research for quite a while. And I got hired there out of college because of work I was doing in energy storage. And when I got into the lab there, my job was to work with as many battery chemistries on the planet as I could get my hands on, from battery chemistries you barely felt comfortable standing next to classic, incumbent chemistries. We were kind of qualifying for different military applications. And I got to see this whole spectrum of batteries, from the bleeding edge tech all the way to what's been proven. And a lot of times technology that has oftentimes been overlooked. So a lot of battery chemistries and batteries around us had been chosen because specific industries were kind of driving that technology. And so what we had done is we built these new battery systems. I'd worked on kind of what we called like a more electric future with the DoD. And then from there, I really wanted to apply a lot of the work that I was doing to different applications. So I convinced Northrop to work with the San Diego Zoo, actually, to build technology to aid in wildlife conservation. And so from there, I spent the last, I guess, coming up on 7 years now, working with the San Diego Zoo, helping build battery systems and other technology for them, for projects up in the Arctic with polar bears to down to the swampy rainforests of South America and kind of everywhere in between. So I got a deep passion for, I think, tech, seeing, not only the impact it can have, but being in the places where tech sometimes our footprint is having an impact, being on the edge of sea ice and, wanting to help build technology that's a little more for the future, as opposed to kind of solving our short-term goals. So try to connect those two things. And that led to ZapBatt, in which I think this battery technology has been overlooked. And I think that with our software and hardware is going to have a big impact, not only on the ability of companies to use batteries, but on the actual footprint and the sustainability of how long a battery should last and how it should affect our environment.
And it was that path, of course, that led you to ZapBatt. So I've got to ask, I mean, for people that are hearing about you for the first time, can you possibly expand on some of the problems that you solve with your tech?
Yeah. So, battery technology about 15, 20 years ago was really being driven by two industries, which was early cell phones and kind of portable electronics, and then early automotive. And they had a very specific requirement for what they need batteries to do. Now, where that's brought us is, batteries take a long time to charge. Everyone's aware of that. Because of how they're being used, oftentimes they're only lasting a few years, and less than 5% are being recycled in the US right now. And, we're kind of in this first wave, the end of the first wave of electrification, where we're seeing what happens when safety issues are cropping up. So what lithium titanate has been proven to do in various oil and gas and kind of military applications is it can charge, much, much faster than a typical lithium ion. Even at fast charging, it can last almost 15 to 20 times as long, can be up to 25 plus years. And it is the safest chemistry of the entire class, so it has no risk of self-thermal runaway. So the battery on my desk right here, I can puncture, I can short circuit, I can overvoltage, I can do anything I want without it catching fire, which with those three things is a big change to how batteries have been designed into several systems to date.
And what kind of products are used in there? Because I read that you're creating this new kind of battery system that powers a wide range of electric products for both businesses and consumers. But just to bring it to life, can you tell me a little bit more about where it's being used?
The first industries we're focusing on is micromobility. So you could think of anything a golf cart or smaller. This includes e-bikes, scooters, electric skateboards, kind of anything in that size class. And that's because, we see the growth and expansion of micromobility and the need for a better battery technology. A battery that can charge in 15 minutes is now a very convenient system for both businesses for mobility as a service, as well as consumers using e-bikes on the daily to commute. And then we're also focusing on a few consumer products, more things like around the house where you'd want, let's say, your lawnmower or your whatever it is to charge very quickly, or your vacuum. And then we're looking in the future, though, at things like home storage. So at lithium titanate, our batteries are qualified for 15,000 cycles, which if that was one cycle a day, that would be technically 45 years of lifetime. And so we see a big opportunity of growing to the space where you could have a battery on your house that lasts almost as long as your house does, or your solar panels, has a much more economic value. So those are kind of the three buckets we're looking at.
And I must admit, when I first was reading about you guys, and I was reading how you're utilizing this unique battery chemistry with a nano-structured crystal compound called lithium titanate, I automatically felt like Doc Brown in Back to the Future. I want to go, great Scott! Sounds incredibly intriguing. But how would you simplify that to anyone that's just hearing about what's going on under the hood there?
Mm-hmm. So, lithium titanate got its origin quite a while ago, and it was developed for the Navy, where they needed a safer structural compound for use in various applications. And so essentially, it's like a crystal of titanium, you could say. It's a very unique structure that allows it to move energy very, very quickly. And then more importantly, it can move energy very quickly without degrading. So a lot of times, if you try and fast charge a battery, you'll heavily degrade it either chemically or mechanically. And so this structure allows you to kind of do both, where you can charge it very quickly and then still get a good lifespan out of it.
For other people listening that are interested in the value proposition, how it compares to different chargers out there, what are those main differences, would you say? And more than anything, what makes it exciting for you?
The thing that makes it most exciting is I personally believe we're going to exit this era that will be kind of considered like the fast fashion of batteries, where we're just used to having a battery last for a certain amount of time and either responsibly trying to recycle it or getting rid of it. But the real value proposition is that, we put a lot of time and energy to produce a battery. And what we want is that battery to last as long as possible. We really want it to be like a workhorse, whether it's for me as a consumer or for my business. And that's where the value proposition really lies, where for industries like mobility or mobility as a service, a battery that can last, 20 years, let's say, and charge in 15 minutes allows them to completely change their economics. Before a 5 to 7 hour charge time, meant they have to include all these extra costs like warehousing, vans, transportation, all these different things just because the battery took too long to charge. And they're having to replace it every 12 months. So we're really hoping that, with this kind of mix of offerings, a battery now becomes a much more of an economic driver for these businesses. And then for me as a consumer, it's something that I can rely on for years to come when I purchase one.
And of course, until now, this chemistry has mostly been used in large-scale infrastructure, oil and gas projects and industrial applications. So just to bring this to life for anyone listening anywhere in the world, are there any use cases that you can share to how it's being used?
Absolutely. So right now in Japan, they're used for very large-scale infrastructure systems where essentially it's a very large battery system meant to buffer and balance parts of the grid to store energy very quickly or offload it pretty quickly. And when lithium titanate first came out, it was lower energy density. That's kind of why it didn't hit a lot of the markets like cell phones or personal electronics. But in infrastructure, you don't care, right? If a battery is giant and it's a little more giant, it doesn't necessarily matter. So that's been its kind of primary thing. And then for folks who use batteries and things like drilling equipment or other stuff like that, where you need an ultra safe technology, we've seen it used in those applications as well. And as well as it has broken into a few automotive. Mitsubishi used it as a subcomponent for one of their hybrid systems, and we've seen it enter certain transit buses where the transit bus doesn't need to go 500 miles because it can stop and charge, at ports throughout the day. So it's starting to get into, creep into these more consumer focused applications, but it's kind of just the very beginning of that in a lot of cases.
And do you get to hear feedback from your customers? Any trends in the kind of conversations that you're having as well?
So there's kind of two interesting pieces of feedback. One, from our internal folks who are building and testing this stuff, and then from external people who get to try it and ride it and other stuff. And one is the analogy we often get is it feels like going from dial-up internet to high-speed Wi-Fi, which is, you plug it in and then it's basically done charging before you expect it to, a lot faster. And it's kind of shocking. And it makes every battery charge after that feel like it's now a thing of the past. And then on the internal side, we've seen all these fun things prop up when you can move energy, this quickly, such as on e-bikes, typically they'll down convert their regenerative braking to charge the battery so they don't, overcharge it or charge it too quickly. But we can accept 100% of that power coming in to charge it. And so we've seen up to a 20% increase in ride range just because you can regenerate energy so well. And so we've actually seen our folks, including myself, like when you're going downhill, you'll pedal as hard as you can downhill on full regeneration to it's like a challenge. Like I don't pedal uphill, but I pedal as hard as I can downhill, which is somewhat fun. So yeah, a lot of interesting feedback, and I think a lot more to come as well.
And the whole industry is continuously evolving. So what's next for ZapBatt? Where do you go from here? And is there any teasers you can leave us in the kind of direction that you're heading in?
What's important for us is in the battery space, there's a lot of big promises that are very far away. And I think there's a lot of people working on great technology, but sometimes getting technology from a lab bench to the real world is far from trivial. And so what's next for us is we really want to start getting this battery on the market, starting this year in a few applications. And to show that, sometimes to have better technology, it's not inventing a miracle technology. It's looking at what's possibly been overlooked and then bringing that solution to market in a lot faster of a timeline. And so we're very excited to have offerings this year in the mobility space, specifically in the micromobility space with some of our first customers. And then we have a pretty exciting couple consumer applications coming out. I can't give too much on that, but we hope to be announcing a lot more later this year.
I do love a good teaser to end the podcast on, but we did begin our conversation talking about your origin story. So as we come full circle, I always like to ask my guests if there was a song or a book or anything that's inspired or helped you in your career, and share that story and choice with everyone listening. And we can leave on an inspirational note, and we'll add your choice to either our Spotify playlist or Amazon wishlist. Is there a story and choice that you'd like to leave us with today?
I think there's two. I guess one absolutely comes to mind. I I'm a big Malcolm Gladwell fan,
Yes.
as a lot of people are. And I remember first time reading his book, David and Goliath, about how a shifting perspective can often make it seem like what you thought was a front runner or, a favored situation oftentimes is not. And I remember really taking that to heart about, it's easy to get hooked into thinking that, everything is a certain way, a certain perspective, especially with technology. And, I took a lot of care to heart to see that oftentimes if you can shift your perspective of how you're looking at something, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities, especially how to solve problems. So that was a big one for me.
Great choice there. I'll add that to our Amazon wish list. And for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about ZapBatt, maybe look at videos and things of how it all works, or even contact your team, what's the best starting point?
Absolutely. You can email us at chargefast@zapbatt.com to reach out to us and learn more about technology, or go to our website and stay tuned for a couple kind of press announcements here in the next couple of months.
Ooh, interesting. Well, I'll get those notes I'll get those links added to the show notes. And thanks so much for coming on here. I've certainly learnt a thing or two about this new kind of battery system that's going to be used to power a wide range of electric products for businesses and consumers, and the technology behind it. Incredibly cool. But more than anything, thank you for sharing that and your story with me today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope we were able to demystify some of that sophisticated and complex battery technology today, and hopefully you learnt a few things. I know I did. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please, I always invite everyone listening to not only send me a message to techblogwriter@outlook.com or DM me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, but also to help the show in the battle against the algorithms. If you could leave a rating and review, send me a screenshot and I will give you a shout out on a future episode. So thank you for listening as always. I'll be back bright and early tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere, but thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.